Welcome to Bitter or Better, real stories of divorce and resilience, the podcast that gets real about the messy middle of divorce and what it takes to come out stronger on the other side. I'm your host, Abby England, marketer, national board-certified health and wellness coach, and author of the upcoming book, Bitter or Better, and I've personally earned my divorce Kevlar. This podcast isn't legal advice. It isn't tips and tricks and don't forgets and hacks and how-tos. There's plenty of other podcasts out there interviewing lawyers, therapists, accountants, all sorts of divorce scientists. This podcast is raw, real conversations with everyday people who have jobs, kids, responsibilities, commitments, and yet they've weathered the heartbreak, rebuilt their lives, and found unexpected strength along the way. Because while divorce can break you, it can also make you better. You are not alone. Let's hear someone else's story and see what resonates.
Right, but here we are.
That's right.
It's been, I don't know.
2014 is when I left Walmart.
Okay, and so that's what, 10 years ago. I can do math.
Yeah, I gave you an easy one.
That's right. Wow, and I remember coming down, so for the world, for our listeners, Casey and I know each other through Sam's Club. I was on the membership team. You were on shows and events. Mm-hmm. We would do a lot of things together.
At least twice a year for the events and meetings and stuff.
Yeah. But then you guys were also so fun. I remember just you know what? I'm just going to go see what Casey and Josh are doing.
We had a blast. We got in trouble with HR a lot, but that's okay.
It's okay. But we're here on a different note.
Yes.
We're not reminiscing about, well, maybe some stories will come in. I don't know. We'll see. But I feel like we're going to laugh a lot today. We might cry a little bit. That's okay.
I'll let you cry. It's okay.
Okay, it's about feeling.
It all has purpose, right? Yeah. There's a purpose in this.
Yeah.
So
it's all good. We'll feel our feelings.
Yeah.
But first, why? So you shared a bit of your story kind of in our earlier conversations. It sounds like a roller coaster. Why go back and pick at the scab and share your story?
I think there's lots of opportunities to learn from our own experiences, right? So not just personally and processing it and admitting what really happened and making it okay. And we'll talk a little bit about that too. But, you met my two boys. They're from that marriage. So it's something I have to deal with. And I need to deal with it honestly. Plus, I think there's a lot of men out there that have gone through similar situations or will go through similar situations that deserve to hear what we talk about and know that, it's okay to be pissed. It's okay to go through this and feel wronged. If they're the ones that messed up, we'll talk about that too. But it's okay to go through things you go through. I know that sounds really cliche or simple, but people need to hear that, it's okay, And
I appreciate you being open enough to be my first male guest.
100%.
Yay.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this. So I appreciate your candor and transparency and you just being kind of truthful with the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And also, I think it'd be good for you, right? I was going through the order of things that happened. We were finally divorced after 2 years in September 2017.
Okay.
So it's not as fresh for me like it is for you. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, I could bequeath some insight and hope for you in this process. And let's make fun of some people in the process too. Right?
Let's laugh at a few people's expense.
Right.
It's fine.
It's a coping mechanism.
Yes. I use humor to cope.
Yes.
Let's rewind the clock a little bit. Take us back. Give us the context of how you guys met, what attracted you to each other.
Cool. So I met my ex in high school. I was a band nerd, which ended up paying off pretty well in my career, right? Just intellectually, experience-wise, problem solving, that sort of thing. But she was a cheerleader and never the two shall meet. So it was a great experience that I had her attention. We were ultimately high school sweethearts, right? And high school was a pretty insulated place where you don't have to deal with reality, with issues and process feelings and experiences instead of cope with them in unhealthy ways. We went to college, kind of went different ways. That breakup was what it was. immature reasons, whatever. Then we actually met up again years later after I've been in the corporate world a bit. She's been in the world experiencing what she's experienced. And we just hit it off again. And, dated for a while. There were some red flags. There were some, because of the high school experience, the nostalgia clouding my judgment of reality or creating this unreal world or person. But we ended up getting married, having our oldest. I think it was 14 months into our marriage. So real quick, terrified about being parents as everyone is, but enjoyed it, right? Did that. Then 2 years later, pregnancy's rough for women and for men, I guess, not as much, obviously. But she suffered some postpartum, some issues, and just we never reconciled that. There was some infidelity on her part that just became a bigger issue. And then some challenges with, reports being filed and accusations that turned into like a year and a half at least drawn out divorce process. So that's kind of how we ended up parting ways, really.
Okay. So high school sweethearts, you went out and you both sowed your wild oats for a little bit, and then you came back together. And like you said, the nostalgia kind of took over.
Yeah.
Had 2 boys?
2 boys, yeah.
2 boys. Okay. So how long were you married?
If you include the separation and the not legal divorce, 4.5 years.
Okay.
But it was about, I'd say 4 years is safe.
Okay. Well, thank you for just helping set the stage.
Yeah.
You got into it a little bit, but as much as you feel comfortable, help us understand like what happened. How did the D word kind of come up?
Yeah, we weren't really ones to use that in fighting, and then all of a sudden we were. I say we. It was really on her part, and I know it's easy for me to say that from my perspective, but I was always going to be loyal to the point where even through the separation, when stuff was happening, I actually was seeking counseling, and I was in clinical denial of everything happening. So I was going to be loyal at all costs. That's what marriage was, in my opinion, my experience. But how it came up was just arguments, and it would be that resort. And what made me realize it was a serious issue, because people say things they don't mean. My love language is words of affirmation, so I'm very particular with words, but that also means I hold resentment for people that aren't. So I understood that was an issue, but I looked over it, was whenever we couldn't remember history in the same way, right? So like when I would say, okay, well, let's try to reconcile this. I said this, that was wrong. You said this, that was wrong. I did this, that was wrong. Here's where it escalated. And she would say, no, that's not what happened at all. And we couldn't even agree on what literally happened. So I knew that was probably the first, there were red flags before, but that was the first serious moment where I'm like, this might not survive. And then when I caught her having an affair we went to a show on Dixon Street and caught her, talking to someone via email. We obviously had to ride home together. We had babysitters and everything, had to ride home together. Long story short, she called the police and said that I was doing things I literally wasn't doing. And it reminded me of those moments where we couldn't remember what happened. Mm-hmm. And she was convinced that I was abusive and doing all this. So I'm like, wait a minute. So I pulled over, police came, said, hey, nothing's wrong, but I would recommend going home together. And I'm like, that's probably really good advice, like prophetic foreshadowing, if you will. And then the next week, I was like, she said she needed some time. So she went to her parents. And I just worked. I was doing my thing. Then one day, couldn't find my phone. So realized that she took it. And so I went to the store, AT&T, to get a new one and try to figure things out. And our account had been drained. And then the next day, I got served with a protective order that had all sorts of nonsense about me being abusive, making threats with weapons, all sorts of stuff, which throughout the whole process was evidence that was not, clearly not just not the case, but that was a tactic used in other relationships she had. So it was kind of a challenge, but that's where it really hit me. And I'm like, yeah. And then my mom being an attorney in Oklahoma was like, this is serious. This isn't just a fight, something you get over. You need to lawyer up. And that's when it hit me like, okay, this is a serious deal. This is where it's going.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you, and that's not you at all.
Right. It's wild.
I'm curious of like what you were feeling in the thick of that bullshit.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Let me go back. Sitting in the parking lot of AT&T at 10 p.m., having no money in my account, no phone. I literally, I had a Mac from work, so I literally FaceTimed my mom through the Mac connected to AT&T internet, and I was like sobbing. I remember being let go from Walmart and thinking, this is traumatic. This is a challenge. What do I do? And then consulting with my mom. And in fact, my ex, when I told her what happened, her response was, why did you do this to us? And I'm like, that's not helpful. So what do I do?
No.
So I called my mom. She helped me, walk me through some stuff. But I remember that feeling like the lowest point in my life. There were other moments throughout the whole process that became the lowest part of my
The
life.
new lowest.
Oh yeah, it was brutal.
Just stair step down.
But it was, I mean, at that moment, having, again, I was in denial, which is basically just living in a delusion that this isn't real. Mm-hmm. Like you'll wake up from it, it'll be better, right? But yeah, it was one of the saddest, most terrifying moments of my life. And that was when I hadn't seen the boys in a couple of days, but I thought they were visiting grandma sort of situation. So it was fine. Later, it became a point of like anger and not really entitlement, but what's the word when you're like, this isn't fair? If everyone could see what the truth is, I'm entitled to show everyone the truth, right?
Justice.
Yeah, justice.
Yes, I know.
And it's not necessarily vindication yet. That definitely came. I wanted that. God provided that, by the way, which I'll tell you about. But it's this, everyone, like, does no one sit when someone's lying to you and you know they're lying and everyone knows they're lying?
Yeah.
But they don't?
Yeah.
It was that, but reversed, where like everyone was like, well, we need to find out what the truth is. I'm like, telling you what the truth is. Here's what's happening. It's just like, no one will believe your story sort of thing. That was probably one of the most infuriating, not paralyzing, but infuriating moments of the whole process.
Okay.
And terrifying too.
I know the exact feeling without being in your body. I know the exact feeling because, you know, we went through depositions and things were brought up and I was like, oh, we can just lie in depositions. I thought this was a legal proceeding.
Yeah.
Oh, we can just tell lies. Yeah. Okay. Obviously.
Wild.
Honestly, I was not lying.
No.
For the record. Just hearing you say that, that is part of the mission of the podcast, is for someone else to connect with. Yes. Yeah. You know that feeling.
Yeah.
So, okay. Thank you.
100%.
Thanks for peeling back the onion.
Yeah.
Going deep on that one.
Yeah.
It kind of became clear that, no, really, it's looking like divorce. Yeah. What did you have to do or get in order or get your ducks in a row? Like, how did you have to, when you say lawyer up, like what did that look like for you?
My first goal was to get to see my boys again, right? So my ex was a stay-at-home mom, and with the protective order and everything filed, which it just seems so unfair because it's one-sided and it was an ex parte, single party protective order. Accusations can be made. All this stuff. Boys were removed from me for over a month. And if I would have known that, I would have been even more livid. But luckily I didn't. But I literally went to Google and was like, all right, who's a good attorney? And my mom being in Oklahoma, I mean, she would advise me and say, hey, here's as your mom, but as an attorney, here's what I would say. Luckily, our relationship was protected from her being my attorney, because that would have just been horrendous. You know what I mean? But I found an attorney, started the process, filed just for a hearing on the protective order, which turned into a separation for discovery and all that nonsense. But that was months going. We couldn't even get on the docket for 4 months, right? All the while, I'm paying a mortgage on a home that I am not living in, commuting from Oklahoma, my mom's house, to a job in Fayetteville every day. And it was wild. So frustration, and that's kind of where I started. I didn't feel adequately represented the entire time. So I dropped that attorney and
let's because that is important. So your attorney your relationship with your attorney is important.
Yeah.
So when you say you didn't feel adequately represented, what do you mean by that?
Oh, I am one of those, and I think you and I have this ability to overly prepare for things. So I had screenshots of text messages. I had an executive summary like I delivered to Sam's for here's the summary of the issue and what you literally need to say to the judge. Here's a breakdown, reference text 1 for this section. I overly prepared her. And it was just a bad experience that half of what I prepared her for didn't even get brought up. It was, let's just get this dismissed. Let's do this. And we didn't even address the custody situation, even just standard visitation where I could see my boys once every 2 weeks, which is wild to think about, right? But I just felt like I wasn't being heard. And with our legal system, I needed her to be that representative of me and my situation and what I thought is, and I'm not unrealistic. I get that she had multiple clients, but what I was able to do was I had a friend reach out from a prior workplace, and I'm going to name drop my attorney because she was fucking amazing.
Yeah, please do.
I worked with him at Best Buy. He recommended his wife, who was an attorney, Whitney Matney, in Bentonville, dude, and she was phenomenal. And I felt like she heard me. There were moments where I'm sure I was billed for them, but I got to vent and say, here's why I'm billing these. And we had this connection there. She can be like, I get you're feeling this way, but shut the fuck up. Like especially in mediation, we had to get to this mediation point where we had property to settle and we were going to address custody, but I felt so misrepresented and like it's moving so slowly, right? Even mediation was scheduled a month later. And a lot of texts could happen.
Yeah.
A lot of engagements or hearing that mom said or did this through the boys or whatever it is could happen. So I felt like things move slowly and I want to vocalize that. I want to send a hateful text because I'm good with words and I know how to say it in a way that won't get me in trouble, but shouldn't say it, right? And she was able to tone me down with a lot of this stuff. I was able to be honest with her about certain things that may or may not help the case, but she would be like, hey, that's not bad. Here's why. But if you do it again, I'm going to hurt you. Like it was true. I wouldn't recommend going to Google. I would recommend resourcing from a reference, a personal reference, an attorney for a situation like this, because you're too close to it to represent yourself. But you also need someone that freaking understands and loves you enough to represent you adequately. There were moments in court that she would just, and it made the 12 months of waiting worth it because she would just ask her a question that would be answered in a way that was, she thought she was protecting herself, but my attorney would say, oh, so this?
Yes.
Like, but you said this earlier. Does this not mean? And I was just like sitting back there, thank you, God. But it was like, that's what I recommend. Like they bring you down to reality. You're too into it. You know what I mean? You need someone that could balance you out. This is almost a marriage advice, right? Also,
you will be
loyalty is important. We'll get there. But that's kind of is in a sense.
Yeah.
So that's what I would strongly recommend. And I wasn't too far gone with issues with my first attorney, but my second was a personal connection and did phenomenally well representing me, actually getting me custody, appointing an ad litem to represent the boys. And she and my mom were decent friends to the point of them agreeing on, hey, Casey, if you just tell the truth, you have nothing to remember. Mm-hmm. If you try to do something wrong or cover it up, you're going to have to remember that, then the next one. So it was really easy for me if I would just tell the truth. So it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
That was my reco there.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad to hear that you got an attorney, that you made the decision, hey, this isn't working out. And which that can be a tough call.
Yeah.
Like I'm already so far in this process with this person. Do I just finish it out?
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. No, you pivoted and you found a better attorney. And here's how you found her. Me too. Like you and I are connected on the power of the relationship with your attorney is so important.
Having some history helps.
I didn't know mine from Adam. But again, also, I texted a friend I went to high school with who texted her sister, who texted her husband, who then had a contact in Atlanta. It's like, I shouldn't have even found this person. Mine was Melissa. I'll also give a shout out. Melissa Davis in Buckhead Family Law in Atlanta. She's amazing. And very similarly, I would go into her office and we'd be like, I need to play red light, green light.
Yeah,
exactly. I would say something and she'd be like, red light. And then I would say something, green light. Okay, like you need your lawyer because you are so close. And it's like every detail matters.
Even if you're the most strategic person on the planet, you are way too close to the situation to make a proper judgment about everything.
Right.
Well, and on my divorce was so long that I was able to learn what was right and what wouldn't. Mm-hmm. And I would, because of my wife now, I'm telling you, she is to this day my saving grace. She's the only one that communicates with her. And I'm relatively healed from my divorce 7 years ago. Okay. And it's like, but because I'm an emotional person, there's a lot of history there, lots of words that were said that were, I reread the ex parte protective order, got fucking mad again. Yeah. This is years ago. So it's like all of this, she helps temper me. And anyway, all that to say, like, you have to have an insulation for yourself, you know?
Yeah. So that's part of the process is the lawyer. Divorce in and of itself is a process and a journey. So if you can kind of maybe fill in the timeline a little bit.
Yeah. So that protective order was filed in April of 2016. We had mediation, and that was a process, but we got the protective order thrown out, replaced with me being in denial. We did not do a filing for divorce yet. It was a separate maintenance, right? I still thought it was salvageable. I scheduled couples counseling that turned into my counseling. But it's like all that through 2016. And then mediation happened in November of 2016. I ended up getting my home back that I was paying for from mediation, which is probably one of the best experiences of the whole process. The more third parties you could have, the less gaslighting is able to happen. So like, she has her story, I have my story. Something in the middle is probably closer to the truth. The mediators find what exactly that is. In this case, it leaned a lot closer to my story. That was in January 2017. I got my home back. Finally divorced in September of 2017. Okay. So it was like a year and a half later. And the only reason was because custody wasn't settled at mediation. And there was an example where we went through different items and all this stuff. I think I got like 4 things back and the house. And there were some assumptions made that, my stuff would be my stuff, like my clothes and my shoes. And all of it was gone, except the 4 things that were mentioned. Like a garage full of stuff, except the 4 things that were mentioned specifically. So like a dining room table and chair or whatever. Everything else was gone, like golf clubs, everything you assume.
So what do you think the lesson there is? Just for other listeners.
Specificity is key.
I do
not agree. Assume goodness from either side, like specifics or pictures. Like I should have taken pictures when I was in the garage once or twice. I should have been specific and had my attorney write in all Casey's items. What does that mean? Duh. My shoes, clearly my items, right? Like all these things, specificity and orders is very important. And that literalism was taken and used against me, or the lack of literalism, I guess.
Okay.
That's a word. But anyway, I'd say specificity is key. Don't assume anything because it's the word of the law that matters, not the spirit of it, especially in a divorce.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my experience.
And other guests have echoed that also.
Yeah.
There's a quote that a friend told me, that the person you marry is not the person you divorce.
Yeah.
And
it's very true.
Yeah.
I think that's good advice, because I thought, why did I not see this before?
Mm-hmm.
But it was not the same person. Not at all. Yeah. So it's really good advice.
Okay. So specificity, it sounds like you had a positive mediation experience.
It was a phenomenal experience. So my ex came with status quo as her bargaining chip, right? Like, she was in control of the situation. Living in the house, she didn't have a job, so I was the only one on the mortgage. And the mediator in Arkansas, I guess, both are on the deed regardless. But the mediator said, okay, Casey's paying the mortgage, so if you want that, you can buy the house from him. In that discussion, her pride really hung her out to dry. And she said something to the extent of, my family is wealthy. I could buy the house right now if I wanted to. And the mediator said, well, I guess alimony's off the table. And I'm like, thank you, Jesus. Like, that's just foot and mouth thing. That's the opposite of it on my part. But mediation is where everything got aired. And for the house, she tried to use custody of the boys as leverage there. And the mediator said, well, your children aren't property. That's not what today's about. So that kind of just tainted the whole situation for her trying to do something like that. But having more unbiased people in the discussion helped me. In fact, later through the whole process, like before divorce was final, our judge, God bless her soul, going through this whole thing said, hey, when we started this based off what was filed, Casey was down here. However, now I've seen that role. She actually said to our attorneys, like, that role has switched as we get more information. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what advice that is, but.
What advice do you think that is?
Well, I think for me, looking back, patience was important, because the truth would come to light. Like, I know the justice system is not perfect. That's without saying, but it's time consuming for a reason. Like, when you interview someone and they're like the perfect candidate, then you call them again and you call them again, and then you're about to make an offer, but you haven't yet. And if they're frustrated, they're clearly voicing that. You get to know someone a lot better through multiple engagements, through multiple interactions with them. It's even more so with court. I think patience for me was the best lesson. Trusting the process, especially if you're in the right. 9 times out of 10, that's going to be proven. Now, litigation might take up some of that. An expensive attorney or someone with deep pockets might be able to subsidize lengthening that out, but it's all going to come to light. I think depositions are phenomenal, because the truth comes out in all of that. Mediation's phenomenal, because the truth comes out in that. Court's one of the things that is just like, it's your performance. The others are like milestones of practice before the concert, if you will. So I recommend more engagements in that regard, but make sure they're documented. Make sure, if it's couples counseling, and that's kind of the angle you need to take. If it's co-parenting counseling, which is what my ex and I had to do, every one of our co-parenting counselors, by the end of our sessions, it was like 5 for one and then 7 for another, were going to testify for me. Every one of them, because the truth came out in those sessions. And it's just one of those things that I think the more light you can expose, the better it'll be.
I'm almost hearing such a juxtaposition between the Casey that was sitting in his car on his MacBook,
terrified, crying, yes.
That feeling of like, this isn't fucking fair.
Yep.
To, you saw all these
vindications?
Yes. I guess examples of vindications of things coming out, like, okay, the process, you saw the process, I guess, becoming fairer.
Yeah. There were moments that it wasn't, right? So custody wasn't settled in mediation. I thought that, and maybe it was my expectations too, have healthy expectations of everything. If you're going to mediation, a successful mediation is both parties are unhappy because they had to meet in the middle, right? So I think that's something you have to have healthy expectations that you can't win I feel like I won in all this because there were lots of things that came up. The protection of my boys was the biggest thing. And that, honestly, when push came to shove and I was in my lowest moments, I had nothing else to say after I've cussed every word 100 times and even cursed God that I've since, repented for, like a Job situation. I would finally just say, all right, God, just protect my boys. That's it. And that got answered with me having custody. That got answered with situations that the boys were in, potentially abusive situations that they were protected from because they were with me that weekend or something. And it's just all these things that were brought to light through these experiences. The ones I'm telling you were great, right? In my favor. Those are fun stories to talk about. There are moments that weren't. Requesting continuance that delayed everything 6 more months, especially when I had met my wife now in the heat of that, like before mediation, we met. So we were dating while I was still not divorced.
Yeah.
So it's like all this process is like, great, we want to actually date. We want to have a relationship and get this behind us. But it was dragged out because of continuance. Like those were moments where my wife now was disappointed and we were heartbroken because we came out of mediation not having that finalized. The material stuff was settled. I'm getting my home back in a month, but custody isn't. I still don't get my boys but every 2 weeks, right? So all these different moments, there's highs and lows. That's why having someone that could protect you from yourself, having those red light, green light moments, quintessential to surviving. Absolutely essential to it.
Yeah, you're right. It's not like it was smooth sailing from then on out and all these miracles came. No, there was still highs and lows. Yeah. There were still good, bad, and ugly.
And arguably, I would say things were unfair more often than when they were fair. Because in my idea, fairness is justice today for all the wrongs that have happened. It took 18 months to finalize the divorce. I still have recordings and moments of good experiences that my wife and I relive, but on a whole, that's a 30-minute moment for 18 months.
Yeah.
So
I can tell that your faith is like really important to you and important to this process. Same for me. It pivoted. I can't imagine.
It's never been tested harder.
It's never been tested harder. And I just interviewed a friend who said she kind of misses how close she was to God in that time. And I can relate to that.
We can turn this into a theology podcast if you want. But no, it's one of those things like without, Scripture talks about it, without sin, would we know grace? No. But does that mean we should sin more? Does that mean we should pursue divorcing more? No. Without these hellish valley moments, we wouldn't appreciate the mountaintop sun moments. So for every horrible experience I had, the positive was just had a contrast,
you know? Yeah. So your faith, you leaned into your faith during this time. What other tools or resources did you utilize on the worst days?
Oh, yeah. I think these sort of interactions, talking to people that have gone through it too. I had a neighbor, she was going through a divorce, and then 3 months later, my crap happened. So I was like, we need to grab coffee. And we had a conversation and she was reassuring about all this. And I was like, oh, okay, there is hope. And she gave me advice. These sort of conversations were important. Again, I was in a veil of having been gaslit, thinking I'm the problem, even culturally, right? Like if a marriage fails, well, the husband's fault probably. And in Arkansas, especially, that is a pro-mother state. The status quo was kids will stay with her. So that reinforces me feeling guilty. But having these conversations and reading different things, like, I don't know if you've ever read Dante's Inferno.
No.
So it's phenomenal. It's about Dante's trip to hell. And he goes down this spiral of the experiences and the torture and the level of issues get deeper and deeper. You know what the 7th layer is? The bottom layer is reserved for betrayers.
Oh.
So I was encouraged that, holy shit, it's not just me that's having such an emotional issue with this. Dante, who wrote one of the greatest pieces of work of all time, said that's the circle of hell that's reserved for people that do this to other people. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason that even Jesus in Matthew twice says, don't get divorced except for sexual immorality.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a hard thing to come back from. My mom even asked me, like when I was in denial, the thing that broke me out of it, she said, okay, let's say Katie comes back, apologizes, is at our doorstep, on her knees saying, I'm so sorry this happened. Here's the guardrails we're going to set up. I need you back. This needs to happen. What if that happened? And then imagine a month later, you're sitting on the couch, watching a show, whatever, just in the doldrums of life, and you hear her phone go off. What are you going to think?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, holy shit, I will forever assume
Yeah.
the worst.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is one thing, and that's something that is for us, right? We have to forgive. It's the trusting that I don't think ever would have come back. And God was merciful enough to know that for me. I think he's merciful enough to know that for you. That's unreconcilable. And God says it's okay for a reason. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to justify divorce, or if you can say, well, they looked at another girl, so I'm out. No, there's truth, capital T, objective truth to all of this. And that was really helpful for me knowing that. And even if you're not religious, knowing that there's a true experience of history, here's what really happened, here's what didn't happen. Everyone's believing this now. Why? Just trust the system and make enough opportunities for the system to ask questions, because interrogating falsehoods is the way you destroy them.
So you mentioned your faith, conversations with others, but then you mentioned that really, really hard one, forgiveness.
Oh, yeah.
How in the fuck
Well,
were you able to forgive?
well, I have to do it daily. Martin Luther said we need to live a life of repentance. That means we wake up today, God, I'm sorry for what I did wrong. I mess up. God, I'm sorry for what I did. It's constantly repenting.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness is the same way. It's not a moment of, well, I was saved at this conference and this happened. And that moment, I don't remember the day I forgave her, but I have to continually.
Okay.
And it's one of those things, it gets fewer and farther between now with where things are. But I do know for a fact that I've processed a lot more than my ex has. Because if I were to have these conversations and just my name on her phone triggers this horrible engagement ensuing, right? So I feel like it's not just a one and done thing.
Okay.
Like you have to continually remind yourself that forgiveness is for you. It's not a gift for them. In fact, forgiveness is going to be better for you and how you're going to be at a better place than they are. You know what I mean? I know that's a bad motive for forgiving, but
No. I mean,
it's a healing thing.
And it's not.
Your motives change too.
I've heard that from other people I've interviewed and talked to.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is sometimes a daily choice.
Hourly.
Right. And it's not for them.
Yeah.
It's for you.
Yeah.
Well, still working on it.
Sorry about it.
Still working. I'm looking for the silver bullet of forgiveness.
Time, dude. I'm telling you right now, time, it's been what? 7+ years for me. It's been.
I got my final divorce decree September of 2024.
Okay. So months.
Yeah.
7 weeks for you.
Right.
If there'd be something clinical if you were at the same place I am from a time between forgiveness moments. No, that's not okay. Like you have to cuss. You have to deal with this shit because it's fresh. That's how you process and heal. But those moments become fewer and farther between as you go. I promise.
Okay. Well, that's hopeful for
Yes.
all of us.
I promise.
So those tools that we mentioned, I know that health and well-being was also kind of came to the forefront for you.
Yeah.
How did you prioritize and maintain your health and wellness?
Man, so the beginning of that year, I made a promise to myself that if I could run at least a mile every day, I would reward myself at the end of the year by buying a truck or something, right? Some sort of gift for myself to earn. And I was doing pretty well all throughout all that. I was running a few miles by the end of the year, jumping ahead, I had like some sort of 780 miles. So more than 1.5 miles a day or whatever it was. But throughout all this, living at my mom's house, which is one of the most humbling experiences a 35-year-old could have, I was just sitting on the couch and my mom asked me, it was one day I was like, I'm done with that. I'm just done. I'm going through enough crap now. I just need to give myself a break, right? That's entitlement, by the way. But my mom asked, are you going to do your mile a day? And I said, nah. She's like, don't let her take that from you too. So I immediately got up and went and ran 6 or 7 miles because fuck you. That's why, right? So I was like, I continued that process. I continued it on. And those are the nights I had conversations with my now wife, where how I knew she was right for me was when we would talk about things going on my run. And I said, here's what she did now. And she's like, okay, stop. We're going to pray for her. And I'm like, this will be all okay. Like, I'll pray for you, Abby. And you walk away. She stopped me where I was going and started praying. And I'm like, well, this girl's serious about that. So all these different things, I didn't let her take that away from me. The motivation was different. So initially I did it for something material. Here it was to give me a sense of myself. And that was one of the most enlightening things too. When my counselor asked me, like, what do you do for fun? And I was like, well, I play with my kids. She's like, no, that's one thing. What do you do for fun? And I would be like, well, I do marketing. Like, no, what do you freaking do for fun?
Right. Marketers rejoice.
And I couldn't answer the question. I mean, you make it fun.
Yeah.
Spreadsheets are fun or you die. Those are the only options as a marketer. Do learn out about data though. But all that to say, like, I didn't know what my answer was. And then through this whole process and my wife encouraging me now, like, what do you need to do? I mean, it's funny. I own a motorcycle. I'm one of those guys. Midlife crisis early, sure. But that's something I do for fun. And it's like, what do you do that is you, Abby? You have to identify that. And it could be taken as selfish from people looking on, but it's also something that's healthy for you. And running was that for me. I'm in a different season of life now, clearly, with kids and all that I'm not prioritizing that. But my wife does make me go to the gym and we eat right now. So it's like, that's just a part of our life. But the motivation for it was to give me something that I own, right? So that's why.
I want to talk a little bit about something that you brought up that was kind of a light bulb moment for me. And I think it aligns with what we're talking about here. You've got a lot of time on your hands. Talk to me and us about loneliness.
Oh, God. The more I've thought about this, the more I think, ironically, it's what we all have most in common. Really.
Okay.
Because everyone faces that. And on the weekends, I would have my boys, I would get to play dad and, remember how to install a car seat again and change diapers and all that stuff. But when it was just me, even just driving to work, like an hour from Oklahoma on over, it was that. When I was laying down to bed at night, that's when everything flooded in like, oh, crap. Okay. What's happening? Should I have regret for this? Am I wrong? And all this stuff would come up and issues. And then running, even like at night when I get home from work late, I go on a run. It was quiet and lonely when I wasn't talking to someone or listening to music or whatever. And I was just with my thoughts. And I mean, I joked to you about punching trees, literally punching trees, just thinking about things that happen. I'm running by a tree and I just punch because I have to do something to vent.
Fucking tree.
I've been told.
Who are you looking at, tree?
Right? I've been told by my attorney to shut the fuck up. I can't punch anybody else. So let's just do that. And it was just one of those things. Like I had these moments of, those are probably some of the lowest moments when I was by myself, had no distractions. Work was caught up, so I couldn't even drown myself in work stress. I didn't have the boys yelling, distracting, but I was just alone by myself, thinking about all this stuff. And again, you mentioned faith. That's where that came in because I was never really alone. But even without that, you're forced to take an inventory of yourself mentally, emotionally, and you got to deal with that shit. But now, like coming out of this, talking to you about it, I realized that's the one thing whether it's a dad trying to get custody of his boys, whether it's a woman that's married to someone for a fucking decade of her life that's trying to cope with losing that. We all have those moments of loneliness that we feel most alone, but that's the moment that we have most in common with the different stories you and I have, for example. And I think there's some healing to that. I can't unpack. I don't really know why.
Yeah. But it does connect us. Cause I know when you said that word, I was like, yeah, I felt lonely a lot. How is it fair that he gets to, not experience loneliness because he cheated and now he's with her. And so he doesn't have that sense of loneliness. And I'm here with the dog feeling like I've got no one. In reality, I've got my mom, I've got my sister.
I know what you mean, but let's look at it this way. He doesn't have the gift of loneliness. He doesn't get to.
Okay, talk to us about the gift of loneliness.
He doesn't get to process shit. He doesn't ever have to address his real self. Ever. How many people did we work with at Walmart that were like that? That's just, I bet you're boring as fuck outside of the building, right? Just because we're talking about work and that's all it is. Like, you know nothing about music. You know nothing about art. You know nothing about riding motorcycles, whatever it is. We have no connection apart from this spreadsheet I'm handing you right now. He will never have that depth of self-actualization that you have today going through the shit you've gone through. Having the connection to my worst moments of life. I've had a pretty posh life. But some of the emotional downs I've had, no one else has experienced in the United States, probably. But we have that in common.
You know what? My divorce lawyer, she coined this term. We were like in mediation and the mediator was on the other side and she and I were shooting the shit back and forth because she's awesome.
Right.
I love her. And she was like, you've earned your divorce Kevlar.
Yep. That's exactly right.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I have. Like, nobody can hurt me any worse. Like,
Kevlar is such a great example. What does Kevlar protect you from? Freaking bullets, right? You're going into whatever next business relationship, whatever next personal, intimate relationship, more equipped and educated than ever before.
Yeah.
Ever.
You're right. And the loneliness got you that.
100%. Yeah. It was the atmosphere that allowed you to equip yourself with that Kevlar. I like that.
The gift of loneliness. That's probably going to be the title of this episode.
Yeah,
maybe.
I like that.
That's so good. That loneliness, that time you had like in your thoughts and in your feelings, what values became clear for you that you're like, okay, these are non-negotiables?
I think that prayer I told you that I always resulted towards was just protect my boys. To hell with me, to hell with her. I've cussed her out enough because I couldn't do it via text, in person, any of that. God's my vindicator. Just protect them. That's all I want. From a values standpoint, I think just being honest was a big key, I think, and that was reinforced in those moments of loneliness. If I would go to bed having said something I shouldn't have said, I'm faced with it there. If I go to bed having done something I shouldn't have done, I'm faced with it there. And people that don't have, I do like the gift of loneliness. That's brilliant. I do think that without that, you don't have those assessments of value. And again, my values are my family. And that was part of the whole separation of my ex and I. Like, she was, but she's not. And, she was someone I was protecting. Now she's the enemy. Let me put it that way. I know it's more spiritual, more than physical, but dude, when it comes to this, the divorce, there's a me versus you situation, right?
Right.
So I think from a value standpoint, and even now, not coming in guns blazing, telling you all the dirt I have on her, protecting her because my boys are going to hear this episode someday. So like very much being respectful in what I don't say or do because of those values. And I want to instill that strength is in not, having the skill, but not having to use it. The warrior in a garden sort of scenario. I could burn her down if I needed to, if I wanted to. but there's more impactful reasons not to.
Yeah. I mean, you do co-parent with her. And that's that. Yeah. I've also, from others that have talked to me, they're like, Abby, you are so lucky you don't have kids. You don't have, you can just walk away.
As if it's that easy, but
Right,
you're
exactly.
absolutely
Yeah,
right. You're absolutely
But you're
right.
right. Yeah. In what I hear most common from others who have had children together, they have to co-parent, is it's a constant struggle.
Yeah.
I mean, because you are co-parenting with this person and you have to sometimes bite your tongue and play nice and do these things because that value of putting the kids first, that's what that means. That's what that looks like.
Yep.
So what other deal breakers became clear for you as you embarked on your next relationships?
That's good. That's good. Wow. You know what though? This is something I just realized. Like I met my, as a Christian guy, I met my wife on Tinder because that's what you do. But I did. That's a fun one to share with the church small groups, by the way. But I realized the non-negotiables were more about who I am. And I know that sounds really profound, but on Tinder, if I connected with someone I thought was attractive and they loved rock climbing, guess what I can Google and become an expert at? If I connected with someone that hated kids, guess what I can justify my co-parenting relationship as? Like, you only have to deal with them. So all this shit, I could become whoever I wanted to be to please whoever. And I realized that's what I did before. That's what I did a lot of my life. Finally, when I decided, you know what do I want to be identified as? Dad, because they're not going anywhere. In fact, I'm adding 3 more to the mix. But a dad is what I need to be noticed as. Honestly, that's a priority at that time. So I changed my Tinder profile pic to be me and my boys. Mm-hmm. And then whatever I said that was witty, because I'm a marketer, fell in line underneath that. Whatever I enjoy, music, I got a degree in music. So all that stuff came to the forefront. Faith was a big part of it too. So I changed everything to reflect that. I connected with Whitney that weekend because I was who I am. And it was like exactly what I needed to do to find exactly who needed to find me at that moment. So it was more about, there are some things, but everyone's not perfect. So if you have a laundry list of non-negotiables that is fucking absurd, you're going to be alone. So it's more about you being who you are and being unwavering on that stance. I mean, it was fun talking to people that were into rock climbing. I freaking hate rock climbing, but I could use the right terminology.
Don't say that here in Benton,
I know. Well, I live in Batesville, which is the number 1 rock climbing area in Arkansas. Like, what? Anyway, but I think it's more about who you are and be unwavering in that. That's the non-negotiable.
I might actually change that question because that is such good advice. Mm-hmm. I mean, I still think there's red flags.
Right. This process or you want a husband, okay? I know we live in the age we live in, but that's what you're looking for. So there are some non-negotiables of being male, of having a job, all this shit, but it's more important about who you are.
Yeah. And so maybe I change that question to what did you change about yourself in order to attract the next, the best partner for you?
I like that.
Me too. I'm literally changing as we go.
Change the script. Yeah, I love it.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, it's funny. I didn't even think about that until now when you asked that question. And I thought, what did I change about me? My profile pic. But why?
Right.
Oh,
that's great. So what other gifts or opportunities did your divorce bring you?
I think relatability is one of the biggest ones. So I think blended families account for 75% of marriages and households in the US. And when I was trying to seek help before I talked to other divorcees, or I talked to a licensed counselor that has dealt with this, or a couples therapist that has been divorced, I would talk to a pastor or some spiritual leader that has been married to their their wife for 40 years and cannot relate to what I'm going through. I would say the relatability aspect is a big part of it. And in fact, my wife and I have been able to counsel some people in premarital counseling saying, listen, shit's going to get real. How real do you want to address it beforehand? Or do you want to address it during? Like, which is it? I would say that was one of the biggest benefits of this whole thing.
I relate with that.
Yeah, you do. 100%.
Yeah. So if you could go back and, this Casey, who's 7 years out, you haven't lost your spirit. You're like the same Casey that I knew back in Sam's Club days. What would this Casey say to that Casey that was just going through the muck of it?
Yeah. And I think my faith helped me see this ahead of time. But I would literally say, there's the worldly side that is buckle the fuck up. Okay? Just buckle up. Like, process what you need to process, cry when you need to cry, but don't feel entitled to say something because you want to be justified in your own eyes, right? And then there's another one that would say, it will be worth it. I knew it. I knew the scriptures of, God works all things out for the good of those that love him and that are called according to his purpose. I knew I heard this on the way here, and I want to tell you this. Bankruptcy is something that is, they've said it comes on slowly, then it comes on suddenly. So there's behaviors that trigger the move in that direction, and then you're bankrupt. So I think divorce is the same way. So I take ownership of the slowly part. I nurtured my ex and I's relationship to the point of that in some respects. Some of it was literally clinical that I couldn't have avoided. And I take ownership of what I could have, right? But the sudden part is something I feel like I was blameless for. I say blameless. Not at fault for. And ultimately, I would just say, I so all that to say, the faith encouraged me to know that it will work out. I would reassure myself that, dude, I'm seeing it. It does work out.
Like, hey, Casey back in 2017?
Yeah.
It's going to be okay.
Well, and here's where it comes from. So in college, I had this professor that was anti-Christian. And I don't mean like agnostic. I mean like, oh, you're a Christian, I'm going to spear you. Like, that's what it is. Somehow, we were communicating on social media, and he sent me this list of 100+ contradictions in the Bible. Being some sort of like snot-nosed freshman in college that came from high school, insulated with this, not really having to go through shit. My roommate and I were like, we were like crying. This is the most complicated thing I've ever seen. And then finally, my roommate said, okay, dude, well, either he's right or God is. And I'm like, okay.
Right.
So we spent like 8 hours like researching history and finding out like what the Greek meant. And here's why, like literally finding apologetic answers to these questions and sending them back, which he didn't give a shit about. But what that did was for me and my faith, knowing that, okay, going through all this, if I feel like I'm in the right, if I feel like there's not a lot I could have done to avoid this nonsense, then God's going to make it work out, or he's not real. Those are the options, and it worked out for me. It's going to work out for those that are in the same vein. I do think we owe it to ourselves to talk to those people that are the reason for all this shit. You're doomed to fail. You're doomed to fail. Like, it might look like your husband's in a good place. X is in a good place now. But without self-actualization, you don't progress. Yeah. You devolve. You don't get better. You get worse. Even though the outside looks different, think about your time with him. How substantial was the quality of the conversations you ever had with him versus what you and I have had today? Like, honestly.
Yeah.
So there's a depth that he will never have until he has that realization. And then that's going to come with hit in the face. What did I fuck up? The stats show that an affair, a marriage that comes from an affair has a 25% success rate.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, that's not promising. So I guess that's my only 2 cents. I don't want to neglect those people that are fucking up right now. Like, you can move in the right direction. And if your partner leaves you because you are messing up, then you're going to have a better, healthy relationship next. Like, so all that to say, anyway, that's kind of what I thought about.
So what do you want people to walk away and take away from this, from I guess, hearing your experience, this conversation today?
I think it'd be what I would tell myself. Just tell the truth and you got nothing to remember. That's something my mom taught me. My attorney agreed.
Yeah.
Said,
Your
just
attorney's
tell
like,
the truth.
"That's great advice."
Just be act above reproach, then tell the truth. And it's going to will be fine. Okay. Have resources to talk to, whether it's this podcast, whether it's talking to someone that has gone through it as well. Maybe even on that rare occasion, have a friend that hasn't gone through it, that cares about you enough to listen. Like, have those sort of people in your life to process that. And the realizations, this is a really simple one, write in a journal.
Yeah.
I started journaling again through all this.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff I wrote down, I was like, well, that was a 4-year-old boy that's pissed off about something, or a 14-year-old boy. But there were some profound moments, like in the moments of loneliness, where I just wrote something down and I'm like, counselor, let's talk about this, or the therapist, let's talk about this today, which led to, what do you enjoy? Writing was one of those, and music and all this other stuff. But I would say journal is a big part of it. Document everything, right? That prepares you for court too.
Yeah, it does.
I've got tons of that. But also, if you're in the right, you will be taken care of. Okay? I know you will. And everything's going to come to light. Everything will. It's unavoidable. And you will be vindicated. There's hope for that. I promise you.
Well, I agree with your experience and with the vindication and that justice, I guess, that came back to you in time. So thank you so much for sharing your story, for making us laugh and maybe making us think a little bit and kind of go deep inside to the darkest depths of our soul.
There. I mean, it's there for everybody, isn't it? Yeah. Like, we just have to face it because of trauma.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
It is.
Don't neglect that.
Yeah. Divorce is one of the hardest things one can go through. And you're not alone.
Yeah.
Casey, thank you so much.
Thank you. This is healthy. This is good for me. I hope it was good for you too.
It was. Thanks.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Bitter or Better, where we turn heartbreak into healing and survival into strength. As Brené Brown says, vulnerability is the last thing we want to show, but the first thing we look for in others. That's what this is all about. Real people showing up, sharing their stories, and reminding the rest of us that we're not alone. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it too. And remember, you have a choice: bitter or better. See you next time for more real stories, real people, and real resilience.